People love to get in on city rallies, but also cringe when they see the losses that they face. In this video, we're going to give you 3 tips for more successful city rallies and Rise of Kingdoms. Stick around for a few tips and tricks that I wish I had thought of sooner. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming. Today, we are going to be giving you some crucial tips to save you troops and inflict maximum punishment in Rise of Kingdoms. If you like Rise of Kingdoms guides that help you get value and smash your enemies, consider smashing that subscribe button for daily Rise of Kingdoms videos. We're a sponsored content creator, and these optimizations have been sitting in front of us, and I just honestly cannot believe we did not think of these things sooner. Now, in this video, we're going to do a couple things. First, I'm going to give you a little bit of context as to why you're watching us zero a city in our own kingdom. Then, I'm going to start to give you some of these tips and tricks that, like, as I'm watching this, I'm, like, cringing a little bit that we weren't doing these things. But also, this video is sort of why I started to realize, like, hey, wait a minute. There's some stuff that you do that is different when you have complete control over the situation. So first and foremost, why would we zero a city in our own kingdom? There's a couple things we should talk about. First of all, we are, or were at the time of this recording, an Imperium kingdom. Now, the top 300 players by power in your kingdom determine a lot of things. They determine who you'll be battling against in kingdom versus kingdom. And for the strongest kingdoms in the game, the top 32, in fact, by power, it profoundly constrains the amount of recruiting you can do. You can no longer take players over 35 million power. There are exceptions to that, but in general, you can't take players over 35 million power if you are one of those Imperium kingdoms, top 32 by power. So we are trying to drop out of Imperium, and one of the ways that we were looking to do that was by evaluating our highest power players and saying, hey, wait a minute, do these people even really play the game? And look, I get that everybody plays in different ways, but for us to go in zero a player, a couple things had to have happened. We have very detailed performance evaluations. It sounds like crazy, right? But let me say it differently. We have a ton of data for every single player in our kingdom. How much honor they farmed, how many T4 and T5 takedowns they had, the number of dead troops they have, like all that good stuff, right? We track that across many KVKs. These are players who've done literally nothing to help us win KVKs, and yet by power, they are preventing us from recruiting players who will actually contribute. They are not actually doing any fighting themselves, and they are making our matchups harder. You see, the problem here is exponential. So for us to be zeroing a player in this situation, that means that we've reached out to them, we've asked them to leave, we've given them time to respond, they haven't, or they give a really snarky response that shows really no understanding of the situation whatsoever. We try to explain it to them, and at some point it's like, all right, if you're not going to migrate and you're not going to cooperate at all, literally all you have to do is say, like, all right, I'm out at the earliest possible time, whatever, like, cool, no problem. So these are players who have profoundly resisted the entire direction of the entire kingdom, okay? And now let's talk about the tips and tricks that you can do when you're hitting a city in this context. And the first tip is very simply to inflict maximum damage and to preserve most of your troops. You really do want to have at least one Attila Takeda. There's something really magical about normal attack damage and counterattack damage and the number of severe wounds, or in this case, dead troops, that are going to be inflicted when you do massive amounts of normal attack and counterattack damage. So if you're zeroing a city, you can get it done a whole heck of a lot faster, a whole heck of a lot more efficiently if you use an Attila Takeda. Now here you can see I pop the king skill, we've got a rune, I have the king buff, all of the regular stuff that applies to rallies. Yeah, you want to do all of that stuff too. But as I watch this, the next 2 tips are things you may not have known and may not have thought of, and I sort of cringe that we weren't doing these things that are so incredibly obvious. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is simply buffing the rally. we should have had a Joan of Arc, we should have had a Constantine, and in this day and age, we should have also had a Mulan sitting outside where this rally is, not in the range of the AoE of the city, but providing buffs to the rally. An easy way that you would do that is you'd have somebody join a different alliance, and you'd have those marches spar right outside the city where the rally is, and that way you're buffing your rally. Now, the next thing that you can do, I realized part of the way through it, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, we really need to do this. When we look at YSG, which is on the wall in this particular instance for this 80+ million power city that we are zeroing in this video, you know that Isong, with his active skill, can hit up to 5 targets. However, for each target he hits beyond the first, you do 15% less damage to each target. Now, your total damage is going up. By hitting more targets, you're doing a ton of damage, but your damage to any one target is going down slightly. Now, this is important because, as you can see in this video, we have people marching a bunch of troops with just literally, you send a march with 1 troop in it outside the city. So Isong does his AoE, he hits 5 targets, including the rally, and is doing 60% less damage because there are 4 targets beyond the first, 15% per target. And you can see the rally is taking like very, very little damage from that AoE. And so having all those little marches there, I believe, is making a huge difference in the amount of damage being dealt to the rally by the garrison. So this is a very, very simple idea that goes a very long way toward, first of all, making you lose less troops, and second of all, being able to really inflict kind of maximum damage to the opposing city. This works only because we have complete control over this situation. There's no one here to help this player. They are 100% on their own. Like I said, fully in opposition of the direction of the kingdom. So looking in on this report, still pretty savage. 511,000 for us, 2.6 mil for them. Totally nuts. And then we're going to launch another rally. Now, I realize between the 2 attempts here that we could do this even better, okay? If running our marches in, sort of hastily trying to get in there so that we can, you know, mitigate the damage of the Isong is a good idea, what if we send all those marches in advance? Literally, before you even launch the rally, or you wait the 4 minutes for the rally to launch, what if we were to go and we just stack up a boatload of 1 troop marches? And like, yeah, you know, you're going to have your 1 troop standing outside the city. It's going to die, and like, not a big deal because it's 1 troop. You're saving so much from the rally and the amount of damage that that rally is taking. So we stack all of those up outside the city in advance. I'm like, I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner. Seems like a pretty straightforward approach, which is easily counterable, by the way. Literally any one player, if this person had help at all, could have, especially if they, you know, were in the same alliance, could go into that player's city and just knock out all those marches around the city, and then this technique would not even be worth doing. So most of the time, this is not a technique that would be easy to pull off when you're rallying an enemy city, especially in like a KVK war zone. Like, seems really unlikely to me that you'll be able to pull that off. However, we're about to have this happen and work like really, really well. Now, I mentioned the Joan of Arc buffs, the Constantine buffs, the Mulan buffs. All of that makes a huge difference, like a really astronomical difference for the success of the rally as well. And honestly, between the 2 techniques, I mean, I'm inclined to believe that having the buffs is the higher priority of the 2. And again, like, we don't do that here, and we really should have. This experience was the genesis of my making this video. I was like, oh, we should talk about some things that, like, the second we realize that, like, yeah, we can do whatever we want, we have absolute control of the situation, the more it's like, oh yeah, okay. So the way you rally a city like this is very different than you would rally a city in KVK, where like you just got to take the darn thing down. So let's jump ahead to the rally hitting, and you can see exactly what I'm talking about, where these marches are all gonna get knocked out 4 at a time. However, the rally is going to take way less damage, and you'll see the amount of damage to the rally is going to be astonishingly low. By the way, we really did have a very exhaustive and extensive process for figuring out like if we need to zero a player. I probably pushed some of my officers to their limits, making sure that like, look, like we cannot be wrong. This is an irreversible action. That's a phrase that one of my friends taught me and I like to use a lot, which is to make reversible decisions quickly. This is not a reversible decision. The decision to zero a player, especially from our own kingdom, is something that we had a lot of thought and time and energy that went into, which again is another reason why hyper casual players that are high power are just a massive burden to a kingdom. We're spending all this time thinking about that instead of more important stuff for the kingdom, for the active people who actually make us win. So now you can see the rally is in, the area of effect damage happens, and 4 marches get knocked out. But look at that. That city did 16,000 damage to the rally. 13,000 damage. The city's not doing anything. Even though it's a, 65 million power city at this point after the first rally is concluded. I mean, it's a high power city with 2 expertise commanders. I believe they were both expertise. And yet, the amount of damage they're doing is nothing. And that is because we have all those marches in place to help mitigate the damage that the city is going to do to the rally. And it makes a massive, massive difference. Now, of course, we are reinforcing the rally and doing all that kind of good stuff that would make a rally successful. All the usual things you would do for a rally. Yeah, like do all that stuff. But these 3 things that you can do kind of on top of it all, using Attila Takeda, because they do so much normal and counterattack damage, is astonishingly effective for reducing the number of troops in the city. Even though I want to believe that Mehmed is going to be like a real champion for hitting cities, he's good simply because you can bring a different troop type other than a premium cavalry. But the premium cavalry, man, they get it done. 185 for us and 1.8 for them. Completely savage. Completely savage. And we're going to do a couple more rallies here in a second to completely zero them. But again, Attila Takeda, you want to make sure that you buff your rally using Joan, Mulan, Constantine. And you also want to make sure that you go in and put a bunch of these marches, if they have AoE like Esong, so that the amount of damage the rally takes is less. If they have a Sun Tzu, you do not want to do this similar technique because Sun Tzu is going to generate a boatload of rage. So don't do that. You got to really like go read the commander's description for whatever they've got on the wall. Make sure you understand it. And then boom, you can go in and do that. And you can see my 1 troops here were defeated. My troop dies, but I lost 4 troops, preventing thousands and thousands of damage to the rally, which seems totally worth it. I did want to take a brief moment to point out that we have been periodically leaving Imperium, which enables us as a kingdom to bring in players between 35 and 55 million power, which is super exciting. So if you think you might want to join Kingdom 75 and you're in that power range, or heck, really anything less than 55 million power, follow the link in the description to join our migration Discord. There's a lot of really great kingdoms out there. And if you're looking for just a broad kingdom search in general, join my Chisgule gaming Discord, also linked in the description, where any kingdom can go and recruit players, or you can advertise yourself as a player, and kingdoms can go and recruit you. Although right now we are Imperium, when we leave Imperium again, we'll be sending out a notification to everyone who is in our Kingdom 75 migration Discord. So if you're in there, you can know when we left Imperium and you can join right away. If you learned something new in this video, consider subscribing to the channel or throwing a like on the video to show your support, and that's 100% free to you. And if you're looking for a few more guides for rallying cities or war, I'll put a couple cards up in the top for some truly outrageous city rallies. I'm sure you've all seen when Solomar, who spent over $200,000 by my estimations on his account, got zeroed, completely savage, 400 million power, reduced to 53 million power, and 1 or 2 more city zeroings you might find totally eye-popping in those cards. So hit that info button if you're looking for more. Until next time, my friends, you have fun smashing the kingdom.